Well, we've been reporting on the president's czars. These are special advisors who have the president's ear on specific issues like Wall Street bonuses, border security, cyberspace. And with Sunday's resignation of the controversial green jobs czar, Van Jones is his name, over his past comments and associations with some questionable groups, there is now a microscope over some of the people who are closest to the president. All told, there are 33 current czars. They are not required to fill out the exhaustive questionnaires that the White House requires of every cabinet-level secretary and deputy secretary position. They can even be hired without an FBI background check or a Supreme Court confirmation or a congressional confirmation. Still not clear what most of these advisors are getting paid to do or getting paid for, how much they're making, and there are still 4 czar jobs that are open, including the czar for cybersecurity, which I mentioned. So are all of these advisors actually legal? Joining us now is Judge Andrew Napolitano, who is a Fox News senior judicial analyst. Good to see you, Judge. 33 czars, 4 more to go. How many czars does it take to screw in a light bulb? I mean, is that the problem here, that there are just so many of them?
Well, I mean, it's as many as the Obama administration wants under current law. I mean, technically, these czars are presidential advisors. He can ask their advice, and they can give him their advice, and he can put them on the federal payroll. But if he, for example, asks them to do things that should be done by other federal officials whose work must be transparent or whose work is accountable to the Congress, like, say, a cabinet secretary, that would violate the Constitution and violate federal law. If he has them doing things in his own name, that would violate the Constitution and violate federal law.
So what do you think we need to do about this? We need to change the law? I mean, is that what needs to be done? The Congress, I mean, this Democratic Congress, they're not going to change any laws that are going to upset the president in any way when it comes to his czars.
I mean, the law was actually changed in the Bush administration, Rick, which authorized the president to give top secret security clearance, thus to allow anybody to look at documents that he wanted to. Prior to President George W. Bush, you couldn't have that kind of access to secrecy unless you had been investigated by the FBI and confirmed by the Senate. So by the Congress giving that power to President Bush, who had 13 czars, President Obama has taken that same power and given himself 33, or I think you even said 34 czars. But it really depends upon what they do. Somehow, some way, we need to find out if these people are just giving the president advice, which would be lawful, even if it's advice on things that the Constitution doesn't say the federal government has authority over. But if they are acting in the president's name, or if they are doing things under the law that only cabinet secretaries should do, then the courts have to step in and stop them.
But what do these czars really do in the end? I mean, you know, they don't have any budgetary powers. I mean, a lot of people say they don't really have a lot of teeth as far as their portfolios are concerned. I mean, are we making a lot about nothing here in talking about the president and his czars just because a lot of people are upset with the president and what they feel he's imposing on the country?
No, I don't think we're making, it's a great question. I don't think we're making a lot out of nothing, and I'll give you an example. The TARP legislation gives great leeway to the Secretary of the Treasury as to how he wants to spend, you know the number, it's astronomical, $700 billion, not all of which has been spent. So who's whispering in his ears but certain czars? The particular czar that whispers into Secretary Geithner's ear is a former executive with the United Auto Workers. So, is there any reason to wonder why the GM bankruptcy and the Chrysler bankruptcy were so favorable to the UAW when there was federal money involved in both, which came from the Secretary of the Treasury? We know who was whispering into his ear. Now, that whispering is lawful. But if the whispering becomes, I'm going to bypass the secretary and do this on my own, then we have a serious problem with federal law being violated.
It seems like a tough thing to prove if you'd be able to, you know, not going to get somebody. These guys don't. You can't subpoena a czar. How do you find out what they're doing?
Well, the only way you could subpoena a czar is to subpoena an ex-czar, of which we now have one, who, as you know, resigned under cover of darkness over the weekend.
I don't think Van Jones is going to be invited to Capitol Hill anytime soon.
It would be like pulling teeth.
All right, Judge Andrew Napolitano, thanks so much. Always good to talk to you, my friend.
Pleasure,
when we
Rick.
come back.